we really appreciate that. And I'm talking generations of us after you. You guys showed courage and bravery on the battlefield, but you came back, and even with all the things that were thrown at you at that time that was wrong, you made it right for when we came home. And I thank you for that. Now, getting back to Pend Oreille County and getting back, I don't believe in individual accomplishments. I never have, especially growing up in this county. So, again, I'm going to let you down if you think we're going to get up here and beat our chests. Because I can tell you that everything that I've seen in my life in 62 years and everything I've been part of is always because of somebody else. I could fill up the gymnasium down here at Selkirk, Rangerland. I could fill it up with the people that have helped me all the way through my life. And some people are still helping me with that. I'll list a couple names here in a second. But the thing I wanted to share with you is really the three blessings that I think we all have, especially in this room. And the first one is, with Easter just behind us, we all have the same blessing of God send His Son, save us from sin, show us how to love, and show us how to lead. I mean, we learned so many things from that gentleman. We thank God for that. The second one, in my experience, goes back to Adam and Eve. And God gave us the gift and the blessing of having a companion. Because life is hard. It's supposed to be. But to give us a companion. And for me, my wife of 42 years, Marie, she's a Deer Park girl. She's a 12-year. She's a Pacific Northwest girl. She's tough. She's just a country girl. She used to barrel race. Did gymkhana. Lived on a small farm. And I was lucky enough to meet her. She was on a Deer Park fire crew, and I was on a Pend Oreille DNR fire crew, and that's how we met. But the most thing is that when it comes to people who are helping you out in life, Marie's always been there on the edge of the battlefield as I come riding back across. Have my sword in the air, we're hooping and howling. The victory's been great. We're going to have a celebration and all that. She watched me jump off my horse, run in, and do the things that we do to celebrate the victory that we just had. Meanwhile, she's there getting my armor and everything else ready to go. And then she gets me up on that horse and she says, go out and do it again. Of course, those are easy days. And we all know that, that's easy to do. But more than I'd like to admit, but it's a lot. And of course, Marie knows, I'm sure there will be more in life. She's there on the edge of the battlefield. When I come back, I'm slumped over the saddle. I got the reins in my teeth. I got my hands full of mane. And the blood on my armor, my horse, and my saddle is mine. And her and others, but mainly her, will gently help me off the horse. She'll stitch me back up, patch up the armor, and she'll say, get back out there and get it again. Not to get beat, but to get back out to win. And for that, Marie, I thank you. You're my best friend, and God bless you. The third blessing is being from here. It really is. I always tell everybody because I was gone for about 40 years. Now we become home on leave or whatever. But it's, and that's, that was the path that God had for me. But the bottom line is that I always told everybody, I said, I may have left Pend Oreille County physically, but I go, Pend Oreille County never left me. Excuse me. Because it's here and it's here. Because I guess when we get older or living here, you don't realize it. But you're shaped by so many different experiences and different people that's really what sets you for life. And what's neat about this county is two things that I really picked up from it. Is one, and it hasn't changed to this day. Because I've been, like I said, all over the world. Good places, bad places. Sometimes there was bad things going on in both of those places. It didn't matter. But the thing is this county realizes it takes a village to raise a child. And in my experience here, it didn't matter if you were from the north. or you were from Middle Earth, that's what they call themselves now in Cusick, or Middle, or you were from the south end of Newport. In my point, I've been part of both on that. It didn't matter, because they were going to develop you, or if they saw something, the people that I grew up with, all the way through the county, they were going to step in and they were going to put you on the right track, or keep you on the right track. The second one I always thought, again, and I talked about a little bit before, is just a kindness. Pend Oreille County is known for its people. You know, people come here all the time on tourists, and if you ask them, and again, I lived right by Pioneer Park, so I was running into people all the time when I was growing up. And they said that, yeah, the river's nice, and we got beautiful, what a beautiful county. But the Pacific Northwest is pretty all over. I mean, you can go to Priest River, we can say the same thing. But the people of Pend Oreille County, they always said that's why they come back 14, 15, 16, 20 years, go to Sullivan Lake, play on the river, and do the things that they did because of that. But again, kindness is not weakness. And one of the things I always found with that is that there's a couple of people that I'd kind of like to identify, and they don't happen to be here today, and some of them have already passed on. But getting back to developing a child, a village develops a child, is that there's two people that I'd like to highlight here that are from the North End that took time in my life to help me out. The first one is Mr. Rick Ryber. Now, Mr. Ryber, I don't call him Rick, and everybody, you know, when you see me, I don't go up and go, hey, Rick, how you doing? Can't. But I met him when my dad was a deputy sheriff here, and he worked with Mr. Ryber a lot. But the thing I learned from Mr. Ryber, he's a big man. He's a tough guy, okay? And the people I'm going to talk about, now I'm not saying they're perfect. There's only one perfect person who's been on this planet, and they crucified him. So, you know, I'm just saying, but what I saw as a young man is I saw a big man, a powerful man, that could, you know, take my head and crush it if he wanted to in those days. But I seen him be part of something bigger than himself. He always took time to help, whether it was me or other people here in the North End. And to me, that was just something that always set and impressed me as a young man to sit there and go, if I could be like anybody, there are certain things about Mr. Ryber that I'd like to do. The second is Mike Kress. Mike Kress, I met him, I was 5 years old. He used to ride with my dad. He's an Iowa boy, you know. But as a 5-year-old looking up at this guy, he was 16 at that point, and Mike was, well, he wasn't no thicker than this, if you remember. I mean, that's just the way it was. But Mike was another gentleman that was the same way. That Pend Oreille County, I can't highlight it enough, is that he did something bigger than himself as well. Watching him with his law enforcement career as well as his military career. And to this day, I still will call Mike and say, hey, Mike, you know, if I have a question or whatever, because he's always been a mentor. Another gentleman, the last one, he didn't grow up in this county. But I just want to show you, I'm not really, he's important to me in my life. But also, he's important to the county in the sense of what he saw. And that's Jerry Weeks. He's a southern boy. He didn't grow up here. But when he came from Alaska, one of the things when I first met him, and it just impressed the heck out of me, that he said it, and he didn't do it to impress me, he's just telling the truth. He said that when him and his wife, they pulled into Newport, that was their first time seeing Pend Oreille County, he says he fell in love with the place instantly. It was like love at first sight. He goes, this is a place I want to die in. And he'd been all over the world, you know, and done things in Alaska and etc. And again, the reason why he did that was because of the people that he was meeting. Now, obviously, he already knew Mike Kress, but he didn't know anybody else. And as he got introduced, and then you all talked him into running for sheriff because he was retired and he wanted to stay that way. But he did that because of his love for the people. So that's just the effect, you know, that we have on folks. Now, on a personal side, I got to take this cap off here because I get a little choked up or whatever. But my job was to lead men and women and indigenous forces from other countries into combat. That's what God put me on the planet to do. And doing that, it was a true honor to have that. But at the same token, the responsibility and the stress and the fear that came with that was something that, all leaders have. And I know there's gentlemen here, whether you've led one or you've led 100 or 1,000, it doesn't matter. You still have that same effect of responsibility that when you're going in. Because again, it's an honor to lead people into combat that are the most precious assets of their families. It's an honor. Because nobody, everybody is a brother or a sister or a father, mother, cousin, aunt, whatever. So when I would look at doing that, and again, everybody deals with things differently. And as we're ready to go on into an operation, well, what happened is I had the fear for myself as well. I have a survival instinct just like anybody else. That's how we survive as a race. But I will tell you, and all the other leaders in here will tell you, is that it was down here. Because the fear that I had was that we'd make a mistake on the target, or I'd make a mistake on the target, that would cause us not to accomplish the mission. But more importantly, or just as important, I guess, is that people would get hurt. And the people that were getting hurt or killed were the people that I loved the most. So, in order to deal with that, everybody deals with it differently. Every leader you talk to, when they get ready to go, we all do our own thing. And some are similar, but most of the time, we all do our own thing. For me, whether I was in a vehicle, heading to the target, in a helicopter, patrolling, or on foot, or a combination of all those. And one time I dangled from a parachute into a hot LZ. What I would do takes me a little bit longer to explain it than actually to do it. But I would take a deep breath, close my eyes, and I would just check out from that. But I'd come back here. Anyway, I could see the river, smell it, the pine trees. I remember the mud, and then the buttercups, and the does dropping fawns. The smell of summer here, the alfalfa, the timothy hay, the smell of the mills, the logging that I did with my uncle. And just remember that part of our county. And then I'd go to the people, and then they would flash. And it wasn't always the same people every time. I would, depends. An example of that would be a gentleman by the name of, God rest his soul, Garrett Shanholster. Maybe some of you have heard that name before. But he took time out of his life to take a bunch of 7- and 8-year-olds down in Cusick, and he taught us, we were in a Pee Wee League, and yes, we did come up here and play y'all. But he took his time and he taught us how to hit, run, throw, steal bases, all that good stuff. He didn't teach us how to dip Copenhagen or anything like that. But he did teach us that. But more importantly, what he taught us, and especially that time of our lives, at that time of your life, you're only worried about yourself. But what he did is he taught us to win as a team, and he taught us to lose as a team. Because teaching us baseball skills just kind of gave him the access to tell us what we needed to do when we became men. And he did that. And then I'll fast forward to Newport. And I'll be lined up at the football field. And I'm running out onto the field, and the band's playing, the cheerleaders, this crowd screaming and yelling. And I realized at an early age, I sat there and I went, for 4 quarters of football, no matter what was going on in the community or in the county, for 4 quarters, or even among family members, everybody was focused on one thing. And in that case, for Newport, it was defend grizzly land. For Cusick, it was defend what? Panther land. And for Selkirk, it was ranger land. And what was neat is because at times we were rivals or we'd play each other, is the community would come together. And that's the things that I remember, is seeing that and being part of that. And then at that point, like anything, it would be time. So I'd reach down and I'd grab my radio handset, I'd cue the mic, I'd give the order, and it would begin. Times I've been, now, in the future, in the past, the thing that I always thank God for is being from this county. Because I'm a little guy. And going through the Army and the Marine Corps, every now and then somebody would go, "You're kind of a tough little guy. Where'd you get that toughness?" Yes, here. Because I grew up with tough men and women. Kind, but tough. So thank you very much for letting me talk about that. And to be part of this community, and it's so wonderful being back. We've been back for a year, and I just thank you for all of that. And sir, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And any questions or anything that you have, sir, for me? There is two parts of this. I know there was an Afghan piece if you wanted. It's more of a question and answer. It's not, the last thing you want to do is spend all day is have people talking at you. So, you want us to go ahead and go right into that? Right into that. Okay. One thing to reinforce on what he was talking about earlier on your speech, sir, and those were awesome words, is that, with Facebook and everything else, I got to tell you just on a personal side, I don't miss the Army. I don't. I don't miss the Marine Corps. I don't miss the intelligence organization I worked for. I don't miss where I was a deputy sheriff. The organization. I don't miss that. But what I do miss is the people. And that, I think, and I don't have a silver bullet, and I don't have a pill or anything. I don't understand suicide any more than anybody else does. I just don't. I mean, it's a tough one. But at the end of the day, I do know what you were saying, sir, is with Facebook or anything else, and occasionally I receive them. And I'm not at risk. I'll tell you that right now. I'm a happy guy. Not that that means anything. I'm just saying I'm not at risk. But even when I receive something from a brother, and I send them routinely, so quick. And technology is good, technology is bad, the internet, thank God we didn't have it when I was a kid. That's all I can say. But it's here now, but we can reach out. And I know I always send, I say, "Hey brother, how you doing? I love you. It was an honor to serve with you." Sometimes you get something back, sometimes you don't. Sometimes I receive something like that, and it just means the world. So just to add on for that, sir, I just wanted to throw that out. If you just give me a second, I'm going to turn this map around. I think everybody can see that, can you? Get the mic right. All right, well, a little smaller than I thought for you all there. But I was asked just to give a little bit of information about Afghanistan because we spent 20 years there, and, and that's what I was asked to do. And I've spent some considerable amount of time as well. As you can see, Afghanistan is located right here in the center. It's surrounded by all these different countries. It is located in Southwest Asia. The reason why I bring that up is because anybody that's Muslim or related with the Muslim religion, a lot of times people will think it's all tied to the Middle East. Well, that's not the case. Afghans are Asians, okay? Southeast Asia, as we talked about before with the Vietnam veterans, and there's a lot of similarities between the two, of Southeast and Southwest. Still, there are differences, obviously. But I just wanted to point that out. Afghanistan is known for being on what we call the Silk Road. The best way I can explain Afghanistan, it's like Spokane. Okay? Everybody knows Spokane's a cow town. It's changed since then, but when I was growing up, Spokane was located between Seattle and Missoula. One way or the other, you probably were going to stop in Spokane for either to get fuel, food, or to spend the night. Afghanistan's the same thing. As you can see with the neighbors that they have Turkmenistan to the north. That's important. The stands here, this is where the Tartars came from for all your history buffs. You have to the west Iran, or what I call Persia, because they were the Persian Empire. Up here you have Turkey, or the Ottoman Empire. And then you have what they call Istanbul, and Constantinople is what I call it. And it was basically the route into Europe. And then it connected all the way over to China and India. So you can see where that was the trade route at that time. And also, what we have right over here would be Greek and the Romans. So you can see that Afghanistan was very important. Just like Spokane, people were going to stop as they went from India west or from Persia east. Afghanistan has approximately 30 to 50 million people, if you take a look at it. And that's a big guess, because there's no census there. Okay, they've been doing the same things that they've done 1,000 years ago. I mean, that's just the way that country is. They have no industry, per se, unless you call heroin production industry. And they are very proficient at that. And there is a lot of poppy that is grown in Afghanistan, with the preponderance of it going to Europe. Of course, it's filtered out through different ways to get up there, as well as the United States. But for an industry base, they don't really have it. They're more agricultural based. They basically make enough food to feed themselves. The country itself is isolated in parts just because of the deserts, like here in the south and over here in the west. They have large mountain ranges. They have a few large rivers, but what's interesting is they have very few lakes, which is kind of different from what we're used to. But again, that affects them in the way they do their agriculture. It's a lot of dry agriculture that they do. The majority of the population of Afghanistan is what you call Pashtun. And Pashtuns really comes from India and Pakistan. Now, what some people don't realize now, I know you do, because we all had the history in that. I don't know what they teach now. But the bottom line is that Pakistan was not a country until 1947. So basically, once India received its independence, and Gandhi, one of the things that he did as part of that was India and Pakistan at that point, but India itself was basically, India went up to here, it bordered Afghanistan. But to the west was mainly Muslim, because as we know, India is Hindu prominently, but they also have a large Muslim population, and there was a lot of friction and fighting with that. So what they did is they went ahead and let them establish their own country of Pakistan. The key thing about Pakistan is, even though Afghans and Pakistanis, it's hard to tell the difference between the two, and really this borderline that the British made, it's really all one area. They didn't do it by tribe, they did it by geography. And that has led to a lot of friction in this area. But to say Afghanistan and Pakistan are friends would be wrong. They're not allies at all. And you can see that on TV. They are competitors. India and Afghanistan are a lot closer together than they are with Pakistan. Pakistan it's the only Muslim country, just to remind you, that has nuclear weapons. And they have quite a few, along with India. So that's why this area is so important. And you see things on TV, especially with Iran, when it comes to nuclear weapons and etc. So they are the only ones that have that. The people of Afghanistan are uneducated for Western standards. But I will tell you, they are some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life when it comes to deception. They can deceive. I mean, I swear to God, if you looked in a dictionary for deception, you could look in there and it would say, see Afghanistan. Because while we're learning the 3 R's, I think we still learn those again. I'm not making fun. I know we do up here. I know we do in Selkirk, Newport, and Cusick. Okay? Maybe other places they don't. But while we're learning that, they're not going to school. They're going to the school of life. They're learning how to manipulate people, because that's what they've done for generations, thousands of years. Because people are going through and they want to get their goods. And not by stealing them, even though they did that too, but by working with people. The greatest gift they have is they show you what you want to see versus what's reality. And for me, I got to work with them on the ground. I lived with them, I ate with them, the whole works. And I will tell you, I thought I knew them, okay. I mean, I don't want to say I was an expert by any means. Not when it comes to Afghans. But they were at least 5 or 6 steps ahead of me all the time. Now, those of you who know me personally, probably not surprised by that. Most people are a couple steps ahead of me. But for the Afghans, that's the way they are. And the way they get you is ego and pride. Because I have never had more compliments in my life than working in Afghanistan. That was during the day, or at night, or then you go back into the area and then you would get a different reception. Afghanistan's kind of like, and there's other countries like this too, but it's always the enemy of the enemy is my friend. We've all heard that before. I will fight my enemy's enemy. I will fight the enemy. And then they go, I will fight the next province. I will fight the next tribe. I will fight the next village. And as soon as I run out of enemies, I will fight my brother. And there's a lot of truth to that. Now, they are tribal. So anything central and their loyalty, and it was a lot like what you guys faced in Vietnam. Central control from like we're used to, we're not central, but we're a democracy, isn't going to work there. It just isn't. There's no middle class. There's the haves, which are very, very small, and then everybody else is pretty much the have-nots. And the education is that if the people don't know, I had an elder come up to me, and he looked at me and he goes, you know, he said that Mighty Mouse was my code name. My dad, you all called Mouse when he was a game warden or a deputy sheriff. But anyway, they all came up and they go, you know, they said, you tell us about air conditioning. Well, 100 degrees, I don't know about y'all, but I missed the air conditioning. I did. And he goes, my people don't understand air conditioning because they've never had it. And he goes, and I'm never going to let my people have it in my tribe. He goes, but if you want air conditioning, Mr. Mouse, you can come to my house and you can share it. And he had air conditioning hooked up to a generator, but he wouldn't share that with the rest. Because how can you miss something or want something if you have no idea that it even exists? The other thing was, I was there with an elder one time, and let me tell you, these guys are brilliant, so I'm not saying what I'm telling you, this is just the way it is there. Is that we were sitting there, and it was a full moon, and we'd had a large battle, and anyway, we were kind of sitting there, and he was looking, I mean, he was actually paying homage to what we had done for his village, or he was making me think that anyway. But he looked up at me, and he goes, you Americans, you're liars. You know? What do you say? I was there. I didn't. I was there under a cover, so I didn't. It wasn't under my real name, so I was lying to him the whole time. But anyway, I'm just saying. But that was business. But his point was, he goes, "You said you landed a man on the moon." I go, and it just floored me with the question. I went, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, you landed a man on the moon. You lied." And I thought maybe you saw that movie that was on a long time ago where they faked it or whatever, you know. And I was like, "Nah, that didn't make any sense." I go, "Why would you think that?" And he goes, "Well, look at it." He goes, "A man can't stand on that moon because the moon was only that big." But that we laugh about, but that is Afghanistan because that's the way they are. They don't want to change. So they are loyal to their family, to their village, to their tribe, to the province, maybe. But to a central government, no way. Kabul could be 1,000,000 miles away. And that's just the way that works. They're also known for changing sides 2 or 3 times in the same battle. And for us in the West, we're like, what? Now, thank God that never happened to me, while I was fighting with them. But that was something that you had to keep in mind. But for them, living on the Silk Road, it made all the sense in the world. The last thing I'll let you know, and you already know this, is they're very proud people. One of the things that they're the proudest of is they've been occupied by every empire I think that we can think of off the top of our head. Okay? And a lot of that has to do with because they're bordered by so many enemies. But the Romans, Alexander the Great with the Greeks, the Mongolians, Genghis Khan, and he killed them literally killed them by the thousands as you work your way through up into history. The Ottoman Empire, the Turks, the Persians gave it a shot. Everybody always went in there, and that's what they want. Come on in. Pashtun-Wali. We bring you in, you're safe as long as you're within my little part of the area, I'll keep you safe. As soon as you step out of the area that's covered by Pashtun-Wali, then you're on your own. We also know the Russians went into there. The Brits, I will tell you, the 7th time, and I worked with the British, obviously, in Afghanistan. It was their 7th time of occupying or being part of occupation forces in Afghanistan. A lot of that was obviously that they did during India. And every time they failed, to include with us. So it's just one of those amazing things, is they says, you can occupy us, but you'll never conquer us. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's so true there. They go, you have a watch, we have the time. So that's basically a little synopsis on Afghanistan. And I think if we could fast forward, I would say 500 years from now, we'd be saying the same things. You know, maybe a little bit more air conditioning might be let out or whatever. Anyway, are there any questions on Afghanistan or anything else we've discussed today? Yes, ma'am.
They were so deceitful. How did our military ever believe anyone would actually?
You know, that's a great question.
Repeat it, please.
Sorry.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question was, she said, how, if they were so deceitful, how did our military ever be able to trust them or to work with them? And for me, I'm glad you brought that up, but as a Green Beret or as a paramilitary operations officer I was surrounded. I was always outgunned and outmanned. There would only be like 5 or 6 of us maybe, or sometimes less, with 100 or 200 Afghans that were working for us and fighting for us. The number one thing is we never trusted them, ever. And they didn't trust us either. Doing 1-year rotations, and this goes in for the guys that were in Vietnam. Month 8 is when the Americans, and I'm saying all of us, now I had multiple tours and I was able to go back and forth just because of where I was working. So I got to learn from my mistakes a lot quicker because we did 4-month deployments. So we'd go, we'd rest, we'd come back, we'd go, we'd rest. But 1-year deployment for conventional forces, it took them 6 to 8 months to figure out what I told you today, is that they are the artists of deception. Because they are so good for the first 6 months. Because the thing is as Americans, and we don't get this press, but we are good people. Don't get me wrong, we can kick butt just like anybody else. But overall, we are good people. We try to believe the people that we're working with, because we were there to help them. Yeah, it was keeping us safe, but really, we were there to help that country get on its feet and do what we needed to do, just like Vietnam and all the other places we've been to. You know, there's not a lot of oil in Afghanistan. I'm just saying. There's minerals. There's oil that can pass through there. I'm not saying there ain't people that have looked at that, but I'm just saying, but getting back to you. So at month 8 is when people would start to figure out. Some people month 6, like me, I'm a little slower, so I was like month 9. But for everybody else, it was about that time. And then at that point, we started getting it right. A guy gave me an example one time. For an Afghan, he said, we always are trying to find out where the bad guys are. Because in an insurgency, you know, it's not World War II, where the Germans are over there, we're over here, there's no man's land in the middle, we attack, they attack, we attack, they attack. An insurgency is totally different. In Vietnam, you couldn't tell the enemy. You don't know because everybody blends in. Afghanistan's the same thing. The only difference between the Afghan war and the Vietnam War is the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese owned the night. They ran the night. And they were far superior than we were because they knew the terrain and all that other stuff. What flipped for the war I was in Asia is that we owned the night. Because of everything we learned from Vietnam, all our technology, night vision goggles, thermal sights, and all that, gave us the advantage at night. And that's when we attacked, and that's when we fought. They flipped it. They went back and worked during the day. So when they would resupply and they would send stuff out, it was during the day. Just like a drug smuggler. We live right here on the border. How many times? I'm sure there's drugs going back. Well, there is, going back and forth. As soon as you find a way to interdict it or find it, they just come up with a way to hide it. It's just that game of cat and mouse. So hopefully that answers your question, is that. So the point is that we always wanted to get information. So you'd ask for information, and you'd go up to a village elder, and you say, hey, tell me the bad guys, where are they at? He goes, I will do that, Mr. Mouse, if you will build a bridge across this river so my village can connect to the next one. I'm an American. We know how to build bridges. We're hard workers. I go, absolutely. So I start to build a bridge. Elder comes in, I go, hey, we're building you a bridge. He goes, yeah, thank you. And people are excited. I go, where's the bad guy? Where's he at? Oh, we're working on it. We'll get to him. We're working on it. But it'll be a lot better once that bridge is complete, because we can run away, or or you can come and reinforce us or whatever. Well, of course, he has 100 guys that are working for him, and everybody has an AK there. You know, it's kind of like, thank God in our county, we all carry weapons too. You know, but over there, you know, I mean, you know, that's just part of life, is to have an AK right beside you all the time. So then we build the bridge. Have a celebration. They open the bridge. Everybody's happy. The village is happy. They're thrilled. I walk up to the elder and I go, okay, we built the bridge. Where's the bad guy? He goes, why do I need to give you the bad guy? You built the bridge. And that's Afghanistan. Now the Afghan way on that would be to bomb the bridge. Take it out. You spent $30 million on that bridge. The Afghan way and the proper way would be to take the bridge out and take it right back to zero so nobody benefits. And that's not being childish. I'm just saying that is the way business is done there. But do you think we would blow up a $30 million bridge? I'm just guessing. Or any bridge that we did. No. But that was the deception. That's kind of what we learned. And too, it'd be like coming into Metaline Falls. And let's say Metaline Falls and Metaline are, you know, they're at it. Okay? Well, in the county, I was just talking to Mrs. White, or used to be White, I'm sorry. We both grew up in Delcana, where we got that bond. I'm a Delcana boy as well. But we just realized how many people we're related to. And that's part of it. Anytime you're in the Civil War, which that is, and most of my time in my career in Special Forces, I've always been in some country that was having they were either in the start of one, the middle one, at the end, or it was starting all over again. And the worst part about it that nobody ever talks about, and even though we had one, is that in Afghanistan especially, and Iraq, when we went in to do combat operations in those areas, I'd have people that I was paying, and on the other side was their cousins, brothers, and etc. Because it was a business in Afghanistan. We paid them. Taliban paid them. They didn't pay them as much, but that's how it worked. So it was it was just a family thing. Yes, sorry, Salil. Oh, sure, yeah, whatever you want to do, yes, sir. Hey, Mr. Robert, how are you doing, sir? I threw you under the bus, so just to let you know. Again, you know what?
Be the first one.
Yes, and it wouldn't be the first time a Coleman threw you under the bus. But anyway, hey, that's all I have for y'all, unless you have something else. And again, thank you for being here. Sorry I went a little long, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, hand off the mic.
Thank you, Bobby. That was great. You know, everything I said earlier is on the back of this card. It talks about ask a veteran how they're doing. Listen to a veteran